I have three parts to present. As Mr. Dadar explained to you, I am a 1972 batch of the Indian Police Service. It's now almost the 34th year of the service which I'm through. I have another 3 years of committed active service to go, which is committed means I have to be present in the office, I can't be away. But there's a service as long as one lives. But having gone through these 34 years of Indian Police Service, I decided to share my views in three parts. As I saw, as I grew up in the service, and my second part is as I see now, and my third part is where do we go from here. Therefore, I'm trying to bridge my past and the present as you see, but since I've been an insider and I'm still an insider, I want to give you my perspective of policing as I saw, as I see, and as I see ahead, the challenges as I see ahead. And I'm not here only to state the problems, I have concrete suggestions to make, because I do value the intellectual perspectives and capabilities and potentials here in this part of the country. So I thought this was a perfect place to make certain concrete suggestions which have an impact on our policing for the future. Friends, as I saw the policing from way back in 1972, I saw issues as follows. I saw duality. When I see duality, with great respect to all the services, I saw a duality where constantly a young police officer at the district level had to have many persons to report to. So there was a constant duality till the police commissioner system came in Delhi. Police commissioner system came to Delhi in 1978. Till then I saw nothing but a duality. Every time I had to do a lathi charge or a tear gas or disperse an unlawful assembly, I had to have an SDM along with me to sign. Even if he or she came later, I needed that signature to say I didn't go wrong. I had the support of a magistrate. So there was a constant duality in the field as I saw. I saw inadequacy of human resource. For instance, when I was running a district, when it needed many more men and women, it was probably 1/8 of what I had, and the crimes were so heavy. So there was so much of inadequacy of wireless, transportation, equipment, human resource. Third, I saw hierarchy. All the time I have to, it was all bottom, it was like, it was saluting, a culture of nothing but saluting. I get it from my junior and I give it to the senior. And if I avoid that salute or I don't get the salute, it is punitive. So it was nothing but hierarchy. Outdated tools, some of them I mentioned to you. They were very outdated tools. I had certain wireless sets which had very limited range. And I had to put them on the treetops to somehow increase the reach. They were called bell talkies those days. Of the famous company called Bell. Things have changed, so we will talk about as I see, but I thought, let me link the past a little with the present. There were investigation issues, there was a lot of third degree. It was always from criminal to crime and not from crime to criminal. It was always, I've got the robber, now you tell me what you did, rather than what happened and then I trace the robber. So it was a lot of third degree, looking for, finding out where is the weapon and where is the property. So there was a violence inside the prison, there was third degree. Tremendous overwork because there was fewer human resources, very poor working conditions. Law and order was dispersed even on horses. I remember a lot of agitations which were taking place outside Mrs. Gandhi's house when she was the Prime Minister. And I was the ASP, my first assignment was outside her house in the Teen Murti. And we used to use horses to disperse assemblies. Today, horses are more ceremonial than to be actually used for law and order. So this is a little scenario shot. There were many more things, but I just picked a few for you as I saw as the years gone by. But I also saw during that time terrorism raising its head, and particularly the terrorism from Punjab. That was the time when I was in charge of a district called North, and Punjab had become very hot. If you remember, Punjab was burning. Punjab was burning, and I think the change came in Punjab terrorism when the terrorists started to attack police officers in their residential centers. And I think that's when it shook them up. The police officers now realized it's do or die. Either they take them or they're killed. And I remember this was a turning point. But a turning point also came when the Chief Minister and the Director General of Police Punjab were on one wavelength. That time was Mr. Byan Singh and Mr. KPS Gill. I think this is where, and I belong to Punjab and I belong to Amritsar. And I remember those days how everything was ruined. My own husband's lands were occupied by the terrorists. He still never got those scores and scores of prime acres of orchards back. We lost them during terrorism. The entire business of his industry went for a six. It was all finished. Everything was crippled. So we as residents and we as family have also seen the consequences of terrorism. But thank God. But so, as police officer in Delhi, this terrorism had overspilled into Delhi those days. And I remember we used to sleep with boots on. I never used to take my shoes off because you never know, it was always a red alert. So I'm talking of those days to carry now to the link. So we got the smell and feel of very heavy terrorism, and then those days transistor bombs had started to come in Chandni Chowk and Lajpat Nagar areas. My friends, what do I see now? As I see now is inheritance of all these things. All these things are there already. What I'm saying have not gone. Because some areas have still got those outdated bell talkies. Let's look at Bihar, backward areas of Bihar. Some states which are far away and still backward in many, many respects. Forward in many respects, but still backward in particularly policing, are still there. So I would say there is inheritance of most of the things I've mentioned, but there will be new things which have got added, which didn't exist earlier, which did not exist at all in some respect. I did not see much of political interference during my time. The beginning of political interference started from the mid-70s. And as I told you, I joined in 72. But they were isolated still. They were not major yet. We could still get hold of the criminals and put them behind the bar. And there was very little of, not much, though it had begun as political interference. But the new thing which I saw, as I see now, is criminalization in politics, where it's a very big challenge for a police officer to have sometimes, I'm talking of not Delhi, I'm talking of a nationwide breadth, where sometimes you may have a boss in the political world who has a criminal record, who may even have a history sheet in the police station, or who has cases pending against him or her, whether it's white-collar crimes, whether it's disproportionate assets, whether it's criminal cases. So you have criminalization of politics. And some of them even get elected, duly elected, because the election laws permit them. So they've entered the legislative assemblies. This wasn't the time when I was growing up in service. Next thing, as I see, what developed was huge movement on human rights. Human rights, I think, which swung to the other end completely. It was human rights more of the accused rather than of the victim. We were all the time more of rights of the accused. Rather, we still don't have a human rights movement of the victim. It was human rights of the accused. So everything was sitting on the accused, saying, accused has a right to silence, accused has a right to connectivity, accused has a right to bail, accused has a right to reform, everything accused. Nobody talked about the victim. And I think still we don't talk about the victim. So there was a very big swing in the human rights. And I think the fault, if I would ask, I would think, the fault came with the Human Rights Commission. In a way, it was imbalanced. I wish it was Human Rights Commission on Human Rights and Duties. Had it become Human Rights and Duties, you would have had the victim covered. But we only stopped at Human Rights Commission. And we, in every world over, every country also opened up Human Rights Commissions. We never thought about Human Rights Commission, Human Rights and Duties. So I think that's where an imbalance came, and there was a big movement which did a some of them did a very fine job in restoring human rights balance, reducing third degrees, but it also went a little off the balance, by which it literally handcuffed police officers. It literally restrained police officers without having been given the tools to deliver. So this was the flip side of the coin. So I'm not against human rights. I'm just saying it went overboard. But it had impacted on the police to say, ab kya kare? Ab baat bhi nahi kar sakte. We can't even talk. We can't. And confessions made or disclosures made were no more, were certainly not. The law did not change. While human rights, these movements came, laws remained the same. The Police Act still is 1861 Act of 1861. So while these liberalizations and openings came, I'm talking as a police officer, other things remain the same. But along with the outdated law of 1861 came new laws without the resources. New laws like the Narcotic Psychotropic Substances Act. You had crimes against women laws, huge laws against which were supporting women's rights. You had what happened then? Prisons became full of these inmates. I was running a prison. I think 1/4 of my prison was full of drug traffickers. Another 2/3 of my women prison was full of women who had been involved in crimes against women. And so were men. So literally half. So without creating more prisons, without understanding and realizing that new laws also means new offenders. New offenders also means new prisons. New prisons also means new correction policies and new staff. None of those things happened. But we had the new laws and we had to make arrests. So you had laws even on environment, wildlife, things like that. Children laws, laws concerning children's rights. But along with it, we had delayed courts. While we had log jamming in the courts, we had naturally more cases were instituted. There were tremendous delays. So delayed justice, denied justice, ineffective policing. Rise in crime. Rise in crime, of course, brings us to even rise in terrorism. But rise in crime, loss of faith in policing. Loss of faith in policing, spread of larger insecurity, more fear, disrespect of policing. Now, more and more of politicization started to decide who will be posted, who will not be posted, who is capable and who is not capable, who is red, who is yellow, who is orange, who is black, who is white. Every one of us started to get a color. Which color do we belong to? Then came the forensics. You had the scientific aids without the police officers being equally trained or even having more forensic science laboratories. We had very serious rape issues, again requiring more counseling centers, which never came up, like trauma centers, which never came up. Criminals' mobility increased. Criminals' mobility increased manifold. You remember the AK-47s? Police had still 303 rifles. They still are. But the criminals had AK-47s and they had the best of the pistols and the weapons. And police officers were running behind with 303 rifles. Well, in the police leadership, each one needed to get a godfather or a godmother. Otherwise, how do they stay? There was constant change of transfers and postings. So many police officers started to put their family in one place, keep them bundled up ready and travel 2 months here, 1 month posting there, 2 days here, 1 hour here. Many, you have enough of data in this country where police officers may have changed their postings twice over on a single day. So police children getting it readmitted again and again because of constant transfers and postings. So you started to have, in the elite Indian police service also, mother-run homes rather than father being present, because the father was perennially on the move. Well, this country also got better lawyers, better and better defenses. Better defense, but not adequate prosecution. While we were dependent on the prosecution branch to speak for us, for the state, you got battery of eminent lawyers on the other end who would be so good at finding the loopholes in the prosecution defense. So while the investigation quality never improved, it never got divided between law and order and investigation. It continued to remain the same. On defense could buy the best of the defense. The accused could buy the best of the defense with all human rights and rights of the accused. The police was dependent on its own overworked prosecutor. So there was no match. It was a mismatch, my friends. This was a battery of lawyers, best of the lawyers, educated best, expensive lawyers, up-to-date lawyers, and in this case was an overworked prosecutor. And we also had many more strikes, including lawyer strikes. Many strikes. So with the result that these literally, in a way, over a period, took one vertebrae out of the other on the spine of the police. See, instead of having a strong spine, one little vertebrae here gone, one gone here. So you have a spine which you can mold around anywhere you want. It's supine, it bends, it stands, it's it. That's the kind of police this country is finally left with. This is the police today, friends. This is the vertebra, the backbone we have today. Inside, as I told you, when the leadership becomes dependent on external factors, not only on his or her own efficiency, but on factors acceptability elsewhere, the spine vertebrae are missing. And there is nothing which makes the department stand up strong and constantly face up. So terrorism found a place. And this is not the end. This is not the end, my friends. It's a clarion call to our country. It's not the end. Nobody's safe today. It can strike anywhere. The richer, the more vulnerable that position is, the more effective or active a leader is. Leaders as individuals, institutions, because India's economy is booming. And India as rich, India as a booming economy is a big sore point for many other countries. Therefore, the way to break the back of this country is to keep it poor. You keep it poor, you keep the police poor. You keep the police poor, you keep the country insecure. You keep the country insecure, you keep it vulnerable. You keep getting into it and keep killing people and striking it. So this is what has happened. It's a vicious circle. Each one of us as Indians have to understand this wake up.